We've got some shocking news today that could change the future of the sport. Kyle Busch, one of the biggest stars in NASCAR, has made a statement that's got everyone talking. And trust me, this isn't just some random comment. It's something that's shaking the very foundation of NASCAR. So grab your seat, because what we're about to talk about is huge. If you're a fan of NASCAR, you'll want to hear this. Kyle Busch has been one of the loudest drivers in the sport for years now, and the man has never really shown restraint in his aggressive driving and competitive personality, which he seems to take as part of the deal of being competitive. He is candid even about the issues haunting NASCAR. Recently, however, Busch dropped what may even be a bombshell for corpses. Rather than just whining about how the dog runs, he is concerned very much enough to go deep for the setting ahead in NASCAR, particularly for small mid-tier teams, who are not just one driver or one team, but the whole ecosystem of NASCAR. The major thing? Sponsorship. Kyle Busch made it clear, like so many other drivers, that it is more challenging than ever to gain sponsorships. And we all know that sponsorship is the lifeblood of any NASCAR team. Without the support of big brands, a team can't compete. It's no secret that NASCAR teams cost an arm and a leg to operate. The cars, the crews, and the travel. It all adds up. But the more sponsorship isn't obtained, the harder it gets to compete. This is not something affecting only Busch. It's a concern for every team running out there. And this is a major reason so many teams find it hard to keep their heads above water in NASCAR. But let's dig deeper. The struggles aren't just about getting any sponsors. It's about getting long-term, reliable sponsors who stick with the team season after season. That's the real challenge. It's not just a matter of securing a sponsor for one race, but building a lasting relationship that will help carry the team through tough times. And if you're running a team like Stewart-Haas Racing, which Kyle Busch has seen firsthand, it's not just about one car. You're talking about a whole fleet of cars, each needing its own sponsorship. And when those sponsors start pulling out, it's a massive financial blow. We've seen how teams like SHR have struggled with this over the years. The cost of running a 4-car team is astronomical. Each car requires a full crew, all the equipment, and the technology to stay competitive. But without consistent sponsorship to cover those costs, things get tight. And that's where the cracks start to show. Kyle Busch, who's had his own experience with securing sponsors, knows just how tough it can be. And when you throw in the long NASCAR calendar, which requires teams to travel all over the country, those costs can quickly spiral out of control. Now, let's talk about something that Busch brought up that could be even more concerning: NASCAR's leadership. He's not the first driver to voice concerns about how the sport is being run, but what he said hits hard. Busch has pointed out that NASCAR's leadership isn't as supportive of team owners as it should be. He believes the current financial model of NASCAR is unfair, particularly when it comes to the distribution of revenue. NASCAR gets a large chunk of the pie, but many team owners feel they're being left with crumbs. And it's not just about the money, it's about NASCAR being more responsive to the needs of the teams. This is where Busch's comments become influential. He is not only critical about appearance and sponsorships, but even has a regulatory problem with the whole sport. Team owners and drivers generally have the same complaint: NASCAR doesn't listen. From the way revenue is shared and policies that exist in place to even change car designs and race formats between their own few big leaders at the bottom level in the sport, it can be seen that there is a generation gap of disgust. The generation gap between the bigwigs and those who make up NASCAR. Busch has invariably been one to speak his mind. And in unambiguous terms, he says that the sport needs to change for the better for the teams as it affects the large corporate sponsors. And then there's the issue of NASCAR's focus. Over the years, we've seen the sport make a push to attract new viewers. While that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's come at the expense of longtime fans. Busch has openly criticized NASCAR for losing sight of what made the sport great in the first place: its core audience. He isn't the only one, as it turns out. Many fans also feel that NASCAR has become too dependent on winning over casual viewers, completely ignoring the loyal ones who have built the sport up to where it is today. But Busch's frustrations don't just stop at NASCAR's leadership. He's also concerned about how the financial landscape of the sport is affecting mid-tier teams. NASCAR for years has been known for its big teams, the Hendrick Motorsports, the Joe Gibbs Racings, and so on. These teams have the backing to absorb the rising costs and keep on winning. But for smaller teams like SHR, it's becoming a different story. These teams are struggling to keep up, and it's only getting harder as time goes on. Busch is very aware of this shift in the economic landscape, and it's a problem that many smaller teams are facing. But here's where things get interesting. Busch isn't throwing in the towel. Even with all the challenges facing NASCAR, he's still committed to motorsports. While his future in NASCAR might be uncertain, Busch has made it clear that he's not stepping away from racing altogether. He has far greater goals in grassroots racing that occurs on smaller venues and dirt tracks. For Busch, this means getting back to the roots of racing, where it is unrefined and fans are much more part of the action. Grassroots racing is a whole different world compared to the high-stakes, high-budget NASCAR world. The budgets are smaller, and the races are often more about passion than profit. But Busch sees something in it that many others don't. He sees potential. He's already involved in the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series and has embraced the dirt track racing scene. It's clear that Busch isn't just about the fame and fortune of NASCAR. He's about the love of the sport, the competition, and the thrill of racing at every level. Kyle Busch's concerns about NASCAR go beyond just sponsorships. He's worried about the shrinking space for mid-tier teams, which are finding it increasingly difficult to compete with larger, better-funded teams. Busch has been vocal about how this uneven playing field could lead to a lack of diversity in the sport's future. While some might see Busch's move toward grassroots racing as a retreat, it could bring a much-needed revival to smaller racing leagues. His involvement in these local series could bridge the gap between mainstream and community-driven racing, drawing attention to talents and events that often go unnoticed by mainstream media. Who knows? There could be a complete explosion in grassroots racing because of Busch. His star power could pull in the outsiders to these smaller races and get them new fans, sponsors, and media coverage. This isn't just a notation of interest on his behalf. This is about the new generation of racers and making sure that these small racing leagues get their deserved hype. From sprint car racing to own other racing ventures, Busch has always been a man of involvement across different forms of motorsport, showing that his passion for competition is much beyond any series or team. While NASCAR faces challenges following Busch's statement, this isn't the end for him, or for racing. By shifting his focus, Busch could bring fresh energy to grassroots racing, while NASCAR must address the concerns he's raised to stay relevant. The sport's future depends on how it responds to these issues. What do you think? Is NASCAR on the verge of major changes, or will it ride through this phase? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more updates. Thanks for watching.